Welcome to the Trade Automation Services how-to video on TAS Resources. This video will cover the interactive classifier where you can look up HS codes and Schedule B numbers, review the trade document library of commonly used shipping documents, review the address book where you can keep a list of commonly shipped to recipients, the product catalog for common commodities that you may ship or use, a glossary of commonly used shipping terms, as well as the frequently asked questions section for TAS.
Once logged in, you can reach the TAS Resources one of two ways, either directly from the homepage by clicking on the TAS Resources hyperlink, or, no matter where you're at within the TAS application, from the top drop-down menu, you can select any of the specific resources you need to use. For now, we'll go in through the main homepage. Once on the TAS Resources homepage, you can see that you have 6 hyperlinks for the different resources available. The interactive classifier, where you can classify a commodity for importing or exporting shipments, the trade document library, the address book and product catalog, where you can maintain a list of either customers or common commodities that you ship, a glossary of terms for just reference purposes, as well as the frequently asked questions for TAS. For now, we will go into the interactive classifier. The interactive classifier is used to help determine the proper classification code for commodities for both importing or exporting shipments for a particular country. This information is important to obtain because it not only does it help speed the process through customs when clearing a shipment, but it also helps ensure that you are levied the proper amount of duties and taxes when importing a shipment into a particular country. To use the classifier, first enter the country code of the country you wish to obtain a classification code for. You can either directly enter the code into the box, or if you're not familiar with the country code, click the Select Country option, find the country you wish to obtain the classification for. You can then tell it if you want to do the code for an import or an export. In this case, we'll leave it on import. Tell it what type of code you want to see. In this case, the only option is an HS code because it's an import. Depending on the country, there might be an export option in there, such as the US Schedule B number. You next need to tell it how you wish to search. You can search directly by the HS code itself, a keyword, or an advanced search. The advanced search is more for people who are familiar with the commodity codes, the chapters and the headings, and how the system is classified. Recommendation is to always use the keyword search as it's simple and maximizes your chances of finding the proper code. For this example, we will try and find the classification code for sugar being imported into Portugal. You enter the keyword and click search. A list of commodities matching the keyword will be returned. Depending on the keyword, there could be numerous returned commodities, such as in the case of sugar. In other cases, there might only be 1 or 2 classifications to review. This is where it gets important. Depending on the number of classifications that are returned, you do need to review each and every one to make sure you are determining the correct commodity classification for the item you are sending. For the example, we're going to speed through a little bit, and I'm just going to pick, in this case, cane or beet sugar and chemically pure sucrose in solid form. After you select an initial classification, you'll notice that there are additional refining classifications that you have to go through in order to ultimately get down to the true classification code. So in this case, I have 2 more options to choose from. In this case, I'm going to say it's an other. And again, there's further questions that need to be answered in order to help determine the proper classification code. One more time, I will choose other. As you notice, as I begin to answer these questions, a hierarchy builds on the left-hand side. This is so that if you ended up making a mistake, you don't necessarily have to start over with a brand new search. You're able to go back, choose the other question or commodity classification that you meant to choose, and proceed to go down the line answering the questions. So in this case, I will continue as other cane sugar. I will not say it's for refining, I will say it's for other. And then ultimately, when you reach this phrase, your final classification is, then you know you've reached the final classification code for the commodity you're attempting to ship. The classifier will give you the commodity, or the HS code. It will also give you the duty and VAT amount that it's aware of. This is not the final estimation of a landed cost that is done in our landed cost estimator, because other factors such as freight cost, insurance, and potentially even the amount of a commodity that you're sending will determine the landed cost. That will be covered in a later TAS training video. Once you have reached the final classification, you can either add the product to your product catalog or you can begin a new search. In this case, I'm going to go ahead and say a new search needs to be done. It'll take you back to the screen. It remembers the information you input before, so if you need to search the same keyword for a different country, you can make that modification, or you can go ahead and start all over. And then again, at any time, you can either go back to any of the resources from the drop-down menu, or just click on TAS Resources itself, and it'll take you back to the TAS Resources homepage. The next section we'll cover is the Trade Document Library. The Trade Document Library has an extensive list of commonly used import and export trade documents. When in the library, find the country in question, click on it, and you'll be dropped down to that section. Here will be displayed all of the commonly used documents in and out of that country. To review a document, find the one you're looking for, click on it, and a new window will pop up and will display that document. From here, you can decide to print the document out or just review it if you need reference material. Once finished, close the window. You can go back and look for any other documents, return to the top by clicking top, and search for any other country that you might need information for. Once done, you can either go to TAS Home or the TAS Resources by clicking the specific one in the drop-down, or just by clicking TAS Resources. Next, we'll quickly review our glossary and frequently asked questions section. The glossary, when you click on it, will open the DHL.com website to our customs terminology page. Just find the term you're looking for, click on the plus sign, additional information will be displayed, and you can then either close the tab or leave it open if you want to reference it again later, and just click on the tab to get back to the TAS Resources section. The frequently asked questions are just what they sound like. It's a list of commonly asked questions regarding TAS. We have them broken into general topic areas where you can click and jump to a particular section here, or you can just start at the top and start reviewing the questions. Key information contained within the FAQ questions are information such as system requirements in order to be able to use TAS, how TAS obtains its information. It does get into how classifications are determined, and also some key information outlines the landed cost estimate, comparative services, restricted party, and product compliance reports that are part of the shipment services section, which will be covered in a later TAS video. Now I'll go ahead and click on TAS Resources from the top to get back to the home page. Next, we'll review our address book resource. The address book is used when running restricted party reports from our shipment services section, which will be covered in a later TAS training video. But you can build your address book here so you can quickly reference a receiver address when completing the restricted party report. To add an address, click the Add button. A window will pop up, and at least we need 2 bits of information. One is an address ID, which can be any type of ID that makes sense to you, and the second is the country code. And again, if you're not familiar with the country code, click the Select Country. A pop-up will come up, find the country in question, select it, and it'll populate. You can then proceed to complete as much of the address information you have available in the address section and click Save. In this case, I'm not going to do that I already have an example created. And it will then display in your address book. If you need to edit an address in your address book, just check the box next to the address you wish to edit, click the Edit button. The edit screen will open, and you can make any changes as necessary. Same goes for if you need to delete a record. Ensure you have the box checked and hit delete. In this case, I'm not going to delete it. I don't want to lose this record. The last thing you can do with your address book is if you happen to have a lot of addresses, you can actually search for a particular address by clicking the search button. It will open up. You can select how you would wish to search, and it can be either an equals, meaning exact, or contains. Plug in that information and click Find, and it will return the address that matches that information. The last thing the address book can do is it can actually import or export your records. Exporting pretty simple. You click the export, it'll go ahead and send it out into an Excel format. Once TAS is finished exporting, I can go ahead and click on the little download, pull it up in Excel, and review my address book. And you'll see that you have the same column headers that you see in TAS, and it would populate with all of your address information. The next thing TAS can do is import a file as well with all of your address records. TAS does need to have the import file in a particular form. It needs to be a CSV file. It also needs to contain the same column headers that TAS is looking for. So the quickest and easiest way to ensure you have the right information is actually go ahead and act like you're going to export records. Even if you don't have any records, it'll still produce the Excel file or the CSV file. Open it, populate the information as appropriate, save it, and then once you're done, you can proceed to do the actual importing of the file. Now we'll go ahead and go back to the resources, and we'll cover our last section, which will be the product catalog.
To access the product catalog, click on the hyperlink on the TAS Resources homepage. The product catalog allows you to build a list of frequently used commodities where you can store the product description, the HS code, as well as commonly shipped to destinations. This way you can access them more quickly and easily when completing landed cost estimate through our shipment services section. This will be covered in a later part of the TAS training videos. To add a new commodity to your product catalog, click the Add button and the Edit window will open. While there are numerous fields that can be completed, not all fields are required in order to create a commodity in the product catalog. It is recommended that you at least complete the exporting country, the destination country, and the import classification code. This again will allow for more quickly and easily use when completing a shipment services for like landed cost estimate or commodity restriction reports. A product ID is something that is required. This can be the description of the commodity itself or something that makes sense for you and your reference material. The product description, this is used in order for the classifier to actually look up the code. Again, you can enter in the country of manufacturer or the export country. Export country is recommended. In this case, I will say the export country is the US. I could choose to look up the export classification code, but again, this is not required. This would just be for your own purposes if you feel that you need that information readily available. I will go ahead and complete the destination country section because again, this will allow for faster use of the landed cost estimate. And just a reminder, if you don't know the country code, you can always click on Select Country. When the window pops up, select the country in question. It'll populate, and then you can proceed with the classification code. If you happen to know the code, you can directly enter it, but if not, click the Find Code, and based off the product description you gave, it'll open the classifier with that keyword, and you can click Search. As a reminder, just as we discussed in the interactive classifier section, it's important to read through all the returning results that match the keyword to help determine the proper classification code. For our example, I will continue with the 1701 chapter, just so we can move through. When you reach your final classification, click Select This. It will add it to the commodity. If you have more than one destination you're shipping to, you can actually add additional destinations by clicking Add More. A new section will appear where you can add in the new destination country and continue to find the HS code for that country as well. In this case, I'll just leave the 1, and I'm going to remove the destination. When completed, you just click Save. You'll get the highlight that the product has been saved. You can then continue to add another commodity if you wish, or just close the window. And now you can see here that sugar has been added to my commodity codes list. If you ever need to correct or add something to a commodity, check the box next to the commodity and click the Edit button. The Edit window will appear, and then you can proceed to either correct or add the information needed for that commodity. In this case, I'm just going to hit Cancel and take us back to the commodity list. Just like with the address book, you can actually search by clicking the Search button, select the type of search you wish to do, plug in the information, and click Find. Something that the product catalog does allow as well is a validation. So for example, if I click on my t-shirt option here and I click Validate, the TAS will actually look to see to make sure that we have all the correct information needed in order to use the commodity. If I open up the export, it's going to tell you that my product ID of t-shirt is missing the classification code for the destination number 2, which means the second country in question. So if I was to go into that and click Edit, when it opens, I can go down and notice that for my destination country of France, I don't have a classification code, so I can now proceed to hit the Find Code, search, and complete the classification. Select this and save it. And now, if I was to validate the t-shirt this time, the validation should tell me all products validated successfully. So that just helps you to ensure that the information you have loaded in your commodities are accurate and complete. Once you have everything built, You can always export it if needed. Just check the ones in question, or you can check the all box and click export. You can open up the export and you can see all the information in one list. You can also use this export to build a list that you can then import. One thing to take note of is if you do have multiple countries and classification codes, it is a pipe delimited format, so just ensure you're matching that correct format if you have multiple countries and classification codes for that particular commodity. Once you've done that and saved the file, you can go ahead and, just like with the address book, click the import, go through the process of choosing your file, and you can import it into your product catalog. Lastly, if you realize that there's a commodity you no longer need, to delete it, just check the box, click delete, hit OK, and the product catalog goes away. The last note on the product catalog, as we've mentioned in a future TAS training video, you will see shipment services and how to do landed cost estimates. The product catalog is not required in order to use the landed cost estimate. You can actually build and maintain a small product catalog within the service itself. But if you happen to have numerous commodities, it's a good idea to have a product catalog. It makes it easier for editing as well as quicker access when using the landed cost estimator. I'm going to go ahead and go back to the TAS Resources section now. At this point in time, we have covered all of the resources available within TAS. This concludes our video on TAS Resources. Please look forward to additional videos such as the shipment services and comparative services, and thank you for your time.